Good morning. So we just did a beautiful live. It still isn't live.
No, it's still not working, I don't think. There, now
Haha.
it's working.
Well, we just did a really fun live
By
by
ourselves.
ourselves because apparently we had a technical glitch and we weren't smart enough to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to do it again. And we'll be a little late.
Yeah.
So, what are we talking about?
Today we're talking about self love and connection. So, connecting to yourself so you can connect to others.
Yeah. And that, it seems a little weird, right? I mean, because I love you. I love you. But how can I really love somebody else if I don't love myself?
Mm-hmm.
And you said it 10 minutes ago when thought we were live. Um, in a way, and it's like I read this story about a couple, and they had a child, and they were going to have another child, and they said, well, when there's too much love in this relationship for just the three of us, we have to bring somebody else in. So it's almost like if you love yourself enough, you can love other people.
Mm-hmm.
If
It's
you
like
don't,
the cup overflow.
yep, if you don't love yourself, you're just trying to fill a hole in your soul with other people
Mm-hmm. And other things.
and other things.
There'll be, one thing that's consistent is change. And I think it's just so important to get that, to fill that void with, the self love, um, love from, I'm having a hard time putting it into words, but that connection you feel with the universe and others and God. I think that connect to yourself and then connect to others. I just think it's so beautiful. It's hard to put into words.
Yeah. So, but people are going to say, or I certainly might think, well, how can I, first of all, how do I even do that? Because I am far from perfect. How do you love yourself when you're far from perfect?
I think it's like how you love your children. If you have children, um, or or think about when you were a child. It's really about seeing yourself as a child or as your child and giving yourself that same love and acceptance. No matter what they do, you still love them. And sometimes when, they're acting out or you're acting out, those, you might need a big hug, maybe a hug from yourself, and acceptance from yourself, reassurance from yourself. Maybe you need to let go of some guilt. Maybe you're holding around guilt from something you did 10 years ago. That's kind of under the surface. So it's really about having those hard conversations with yourself and reflecting on them.
Yeah. And so, since we get to do this live a second time,
I know.
uh,
It's
uh,
kind of awkward in
it's
a
kind of,
way.
yeah. So, but what is that thing you always say about don't wait to change, don't wait for change to love yourself?
Don't wait to love yourself until you change. Love yourself and then see the change. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so you separated it really nicely a minute ago about how, your kids do stuff that maybe you're not happy about, but it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
mean you don't love them. And we do stuff that we're not necessarily happy about. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't love ourselves just because we occasionally do, or even maybe chronically, like
Mm-hmm.
me, do things that I'm not entirely happy about. Um, so there's this difference, there's this distinction between behavior and just this overall sense of I am love able
Mm-hmm.
and lovable. Um, so, and what happens when you make this acceptance of yourself is everything just is easier
Mm-hmm.
because it's no longer I do this demonstration in the office all the time. You drop your pen, right? It falls. And what's your initial reaction? It's just a pen, but you go, oh, you stupid, lousy, no good, steaming sack of dung. it's just this barrage of negativity that's just ridiculous. Instead, you need to get to a point where it's like, oh, well, there's another pin right here. I'll just get a different pin. It's not a big deal. Or I'll get it later when I go over there. But so it becomes a matter of accepting the idea that sometimes you drop stuff. Sometimes you spill the milk. Sometimes you break a dish. And that's not a big deal, and you shouldn't get upset. Sometimes more significant things happen, but it's all the same. You should, it's like, yeah, stuff like that happens. It's okay. But instead, we get so upset with ourselves, and then we have this loathing of ourselves.
Or perhaps we blame others for how we're feeling. Like, my partner isn't doing this. They're not doing that. They're not paying enough attention to me. And it comes down to are you putting that responsibility on them to fill that void within yourself that can only be filled if you start to fill it yourself, with your own words of self-love, affirmations, because when you put that on someone else, they're going to fail you. And that's really hard on relationships, especially if you keep everything in and you don't say anything until it gets to that
The detonation level.
Where it explodes. Communication is really key in a relationship, and the communication starts with yourself.
So when you start to embrace your own flaws, you start to understand the human condition at a deeper level. And when you see other people behaving like humans, in other words, making mistakes, doing stuff unconsciously, unintentionally, whatever, you start to have more compassion for their mistakes because you understand that human condition in yourself. And so it gets to a point where you can say, listen, the foundation here is that we love each other, and something's happening where you're upset with each other. So let's have a conversation about that rather than just going to our separate corners and being pissed, because we understand that I love me, but I also love you, and I'm not doing something to you intentionally.
Oh, good morning, Sean and Carol.
Good morning.
Thanks, Carol. Yeah.
Hey, there you go. So we were live at 8:00.
8:30.
8:30, I mean.
Yeah.
And apparently
It didn't work.
there was a technical glitch of one kind or
So
another.
we talked to ourselves for about
it was
18
great.
minutes.
It was fun. We had
and
a great
then
time.
when we went to end it, we realized there was no end, and then we're like, oh no.
Yeah. So it was great. So
yeah, we had a great conversation.
So unfortunately, trying to recreate that is
a little hard.
Is a little
so we
strange.
apologize.
Yeah.
But we talked about a few great books. Because it's easy to say all this stuff, right?
Yeah.
How do we put things into action? And not that these books are actionable, but I think they just kind of get us to
deeper into the subject.
To the deeper, more awareness of the subject. And really, like I talked about in our first live, is it comes down to, we're all busy. Do you have time to sit with yourself 30 minutes, an hour a day and talk to yourself? No. And that might be kind of awkward too. But we do have moments where we can bring in that self-awareness. So maybe it's something that happens at work that really gets you going, or maybe it's an email or an unexpected message. And you're like, you feel that rising up in you. And that's the moment to pause. Maybe I need to take a deep breath. Maybe I need to go to the restroom for 5 minutes and really okay, why is this bothering me? Oh, this goes back to maybe this trauma that I had or something that occurred. And really, if you can kind of sit with yourself for a moment, you can come back. And it's great to have conversations, to talk about things. I just lost my train of thought.
That's okay. So what she's getting to is really this idea.
That happens to me sometimes.
Well, it happens to all of us sometimes. So what you're getting to, though, is this idea that emotions are meant to be emoted and feelings felt, right? But we live in a society where you're supposed to suppress those things, and we're all told, "Oh, let's leave emotion." Somebody gets passionate, and they, "Oh, let's leave emotions out of this." Well, the truth is, all of us, even the most logical person we make decisions emotionally, and then we backfill it with logic to justify it. That is how the human brain works. And it's been shown and proven over and over again. So, yeah, we're going to talk about the books.
Yeah.
But,
Respond rather than react. That was what I was
yep.
kind of getting to at the end of my story. That kind of poof. Just
Yeah,
went off.
respond rather than react. I love
Yes.
that.
So if you can take those moments to just take, spend a few moments with yourself, really reflect on, okay, why am I feeling so passionate about this? It really gives you the insight to, okay, now I can respond to the situation rather than just reacting right away. And then a lot of times I think we see in our own reactions like, oh, I was seeing that through my own flawed filter, where I could have paused and really realized, okay, this is a reflection of me. And there's a piece of this that I can take some responsibility for and do a little work before I have that conversation. What are the books?
Well, let me finish the thought first.
Yeah, sure.
So this idea of emotion should be emoted and feelings felt. We wouldn't have an emotional response to something we don't care about. And so the question becomes, what's the message in the emotion? And by really deeply understanding your own emotional life, which means on some level expanding your emotional vocabulary, you can get to that meaning. And then once you understand the meaning in your emotion, then you can respond rather than react by crafting more compassionate and more wise responses that are far more likely to get everybody's needs met rather than just upsetting everybody. So one of the books is Brene Brown's Atlas of the Heart. Excuse me, Atlas of the Heart. And she goes into great depth about emotions and sort of subcategorizing emotions so you can really have a fine nuance about what's going on in your emotional life. And I'm going to deal with this cough while you talk about the next book.
It's actually by Brene Brown as well. And it's called Braving the Wilderness. And in the book, it's about being vulnerable and kind of showing up. Okay. Showing up to conversations and being authentic. You poor guy.
Yeah. Okay. So tell us about.
It was really hard to talk as you're
choking
struggling
to
death. But yeah, I was talking about braving the wilderness.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's in this book, but it's kind of it's the same idea of the book. I once heard a woman talking about going on a first date, and she was kind of getting all worked up, thinking, "Oh gosh, I hope they like me." And then she kind of had an aha moment, and she was like, "No, I hope I like them, because I'm going to show up as who I am. I'm going to be vulnerable, and I hope they, and I hope I like them."
Yeah. So, Carol, I have a salt inhaler actually, but you're right. I should come sit in your salt room. So, yeah. So Brene Brown, beautiful writer. She has I think Brene did actually tell that story. I feel like that, but it may not be true. I don't know. But anyway, so lots of great stories in Braving the Wilderness. Atlas of the Heart is more of like an emotional dictionary in a way. And then Radical Acceptance, Tara Brach. She's got Radical Acceptance, and then she has Radical Self-Acceptance, both in some other books as well. Love those books. Radical Self-Acceptance. So, she talks about radical acceptance. And, we have to have these amazing titles to get people's attention. But radical acceptance simply means accepting that which is true. And that's really the foundation of enlightenment, accepting that which is simply true. And so it's true that I'm a flawed human being. That is the truth. And there's nothing that's ever going to change that. Doesn't mean I'm not worthy of self-love or worthy of love, or don't have love to give. The fact that I'm a flawed human being is actually the beautiful part of being human, because it makes us all unique. So embrace the uniqueness, embrace the flaws. When I was in college, I had a girlfriend who was into textile stuff.
She's reading Radical Acceptance right now.
Oh, awesome!
Wow.
And
Awesome.
her instructor, she bought a pair of pants and there was a flaw in the fabric, and so her instructor said, "Well, what you should do is you should embroider around that flaw." It was on the middle of the thigh. Embroider around that and accentuate the flaw. Well, I don't know that we need to accentuate our flaws, but we certainly embracing them and holding them as what makes us uniquely ourselves, I think is a way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
All right, so we went over a couple of books. We went over a couple of ideas.
I know. Now I'm getting to the point where I'm like, okay, did I say this in this live yet, or was that just the first one?
Yep.
And we're at about 15 minutes, so we should let you guys get on with your day. But next week, actually, we'll be live at the same time. Hopefully, we don't have any technical difficulties that we're unaware of. So it'll be 8:30 Central Time. We're actually going to be in Colorado. So, if you're a patient of ours, we are out of the clinic this week coming up, but we will be live on Friday, which happens to be Valentine's Day.
I better pack this shirt, I guess.
8:30 Central, 7:30 our time.
Yeah. All righty. So we will see you next week from Colorado. And in the meantime, thank you so much for joining us this morning. Sorry.
And if we missed you, because we were live by ourselves on the first one, we apologize.
Yeah, we had a great conversation, though, but it was... What do you do?
Yeah.
You got to be smarter than the machine, I guess, and I wasn't. All righty. So we'll see you guys next week.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.